morning. How we doing? My name is Marco Debarros. I am a church planter in New Bedford, Massachusetts. So about 5 years ago, my wife and I felt called to move from Pawtucket, Rhode Island, Little Rhodey, to New Bedford to start this church. And within a few weeks into it, which by the way, we had about 25 people who kind of came along with us on this journey to plant, and felt compelled very early to be a church that would really reach the unchurched. You know, and I know that sounds typical, but we really felt like this drive of like, how do we create a place for people to come and be able to explore faith and be able to explore what it means to follow Jesus, you know. And as we begin to just get acclimated in the community, begin to really feel that the disconnect is that people in our region kind of come from the background of Catholicism. Most people, you know, very heavy Catholic background. And so we begin to really pray and figure out like, okay, God, how do we go about reaching this community? And so we planted in January of 2014 with, like I said, about 25 to 30 people. And today, 5 years later, we average about 1,200 people. And we've been mobile for 5 years. We literally just moved into our own location like 2 months ago. We renovated our Shaw's building, 48,000 square feet. And so it's been an amazing journey. And then 2 months ago, we took on another location. Now we have two locations, one in New Bedford that's running about 1,200. And then now we have one in Fall River, Massachusetts. It's about 25 minutes from each other. And that's one is running about 200 people right now. So in a nutshell, it's been an incredible journey to see what God has done. We've baptized 500 people in New Bedford. And we just had our first baptism in Fall River. We've just baptized 10 people in Fall River. So we're really excited about everything that God has done. But one of the things that I'm passionate about is really creating a space for people to come and explore what it means to follow Jesus in a way that hopefully is refreshing and that they feel like there's really no pressure, but really there's an open space, right? And so I think a lot about that. Like, I think a lot about the filter of how is it that the church is perceiving what we're doing, you know? I don't know if you've ever been a victim of an inside joke, right? You ever been caught in an inside joke, like, not on purpose, but you're in a conversation, someone just like says something, they start laughing, and you're just caught in the middle, like, what's going on here, right? And then, especially if those people don't have any social skills, they just keep doing it, like, without even, like, warning you or just trying to include you. You know, they'll just keep, you know, whatever their buzzword is that just makes them laugh, and you're just caught, like, man, are we ever going to, like, be on the same page here? Are you going to, like, clue me in on what's happening, you know? And it's the most annoying thing in the world, right? And that's how I think about church sometimes. I feel sometimes people are in our inside joke, and we're not even taking the time to really explain to them why this is important or why this is funny, right? And I think as church planners, we have to be intentional about what we're trying to say to people. Because if not, again, they're just going to be always on the outside looking in and thinking. And because we're so ingrained in what we're doing, we never stop to really consider, how is this coming across to a person that perhaps is exploring this thing for the first time, you know? And so I think one of our struggles is, I think we assume too much, right, that people already know, right? I think we assume too much that what we're saying is registering. You know, I think one of the things that I love what Dave Ferguson just said is that we think sometimes that just because something is simple, it's watered down. It's funny because one of the challenges that we face in New Bedford moving, and then God starts, like, we started growing quickly. And so one of the accusations from some churches is, oh, you guys are watering down the gospel. That's why people are coming. You know what I mean? Which is always like such a cop-out. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, shouldn't you be rejoicing that people at least are coming, right? Because when I read the Gospels, that's what it was all about. People was always around Jesus, always wanting to know more for whatever motives there is, but they're there, right? And one of the scriptures that really became like a staple and our focus is in Matthew chapter 9. But I love the way Eugene Peterson kind of just expands this in the Message translation. When Jesus was talking to these Pharisees about the fact that they were like, why would you have such weird people around you, right? I just really love the way that Eugene Peterson just breaks this down. But in Matthew 9, I just read this to you beginning with verse 10. Later, when Jesus was eating supper at Matthew's house with his close followers, a lot of disreputable characters, which is another word for shady characters, came and joined them. When the Pharisees saw him keeping this kind of company, they had a fit and led into Jesus' followers. What kind of example is this from your teacher, acting cozy with crooks and riffraff? I don't know why Eugene Peterson chose riffraff, but Jesus over here and shot back, who needs a doctor, the healthy or the sick? Go figure out what this scripture means. I'm after mercy, not religion. I'm here to invite outsiders, not cuddle insiders. That's that part that really has been wrestling and messing with me for these years since we planted in New Bedford. It's like, man, how do we not create a place just to coddle people that's already in? Right? How do we create a space for people to really feel like, man, I might want to go on this journey. I might want to explore this thing, but are we including them on this thing, or are we just assuming that they should just get it, right? Are we just assuming that they should just be able to understand what we're all about? Again, I think, and I talk about this a lot with our people, is our biggest challenge is to stop assuming, right? And our biggest challenge is to do our best to not become so seeped into religion that we're not asking the question, our insiders feeling like cuddle and our outsiders feeling welcome, you know? So to me, church for you in church is about really doing our best to filter everything that we do and say through the eyes of the in church, right? And it's a big challenge because, again, the longer we are in church, the more we run the risk of becoming just insider with insider language and with insider cliques, you know, and with insider, you know, I hate to say it, but baggages, you know, that church brings. So we need to stop assuming that people already know. And here's a tagline that we use a lot is that simplicity is the new deep, right? Simplicity is the new deep. So I don't know about you guys, but I've been rereading the Gospels, and I'm blown away with how simple Jesus is. Right? I don't know where and how or when in history we decided to complicate this thing, but I think Jesus would come to us today and go, why? Why have you done all this? Right? I think Jesus would fail a lot of our seminaries. Right? Because we've overcomplicated everything, and we put everything into a system, but the problem is people are not systems. Right? People are messy, right? And the more messy people are, the more they're like, man, can you clarify this for me? Can you just simplify this thing, right? I used to be a high school teacher for 9 years, and once in a while, the kids would just say, just give me the answer. You know, like, listen, what's the answer? And we're like, obviously, you're like, as a teacher, like, I can't give you the answer because I need you to figure this out so you can understand. But it's like, the reality is, the things are getting so muddy that we just need to be as simple as possible. So for us, simplicity is the new deep, right? So for example, like, I ask this question every single week before I preach. Will this apply on Monday? Right? If it doesn't apply on Monday, then why am I sharing this? Just to sound smart? Just to say, like, look how eloquent you are, which I'm not, because English is my second language. I still struggle to speak English. I was born and raised in Africa, you know? And so I'm like, forget that. You can't even be eloquent because you didn't even speak the language properly, as you can tell. So why not share something that someone who took time to be with us this morning would say, man, okay, that makes sense. And so my staff knows this very well. They know, like, I could care less if someone who's been going to church for a long time give me a compliment on a sermon. I want to hear that new person say, that made sense. Not long ago, one of our guys said to me, he said, man, I was in the bathroom and I heard two people talk, and here's what they said. He said, two guys were washing their hands. He's like, yo, bro, that mask was banging. And I'm like, that's stuff for the bulletin. Because that tells me, okay, now we're going somewhere. We're reaching people who don't have the language to say, bless you, pastor, great sermon. You get what I'm saying? So that's what excites me. You know, when someone brand new says, first of all, it's a mess, and it's banging. Like, when was the last time you got those two words together? You know, a banging mass. You know what I mean? But that tells me, okay, now we're going somewhere. It's registering, right? Another time I was with this is one of my staff members here, Aaron. We were out for lunch. Remember this? We're walking down the street, and these two guys saw us. He goes, oh, it's him. And they came up to me, and they were like, listen, let me tell you something. Didn't like going to church, but now, man, this thing is I mean, we don't even know what to say, but we're just glad that you look like us. Like, think about that. Right? For them, that was a message, that I look like them. Right? And I'm not trying to look like them. It's just, this is who I am. You know what I mean? I feel very uncomfortable in a shirt and tie. Like, I just can't do it. Here's another amazing story. Again, it blows my mind, right? This woman was coming for a while, and she said, I love it, but my husband won't come. He's like, man, I don't want anything to do with the church stuff. She said, for some reason, you were preaching, and as you were preaching, I looked down, I saw your sneakers, you were wearing Jordans, and I'm like, my husband loves Jordans. I took a picture of you preaching. This is a true story, right? Took a picture of you preaching with your Jordans, sent it to him and said, look, you like Jordans, my pastor wears Jordans, you should come to church. Talking about the gospel according to Jordans. Would you know that the next week he came? Not only did he come, he got saved. Not only did he get saved, he got baptized. And not only did he get baptized, he joined a team, and today is part of our usher team. His name is Paul Costa, okay? If you ever come down to New Bedford, ask him this yourself. And he's one of my favorite dudes. Like, he literally just sent me a video yesterday about the fact that he's like, man, I think I have ADD when I pray, because I start praying, and then I, like, lose conscience, and I start thinking about other things. I'm like, no, you're just a human being. You know what I mean? I think all of us have that struggle, you know. But, my friends, I think simplicity is the new deep. I think people want to know Jesus. They just want to cut through all of the religious stuff, right? Right now I'm doing a series titled Untangling Jesus from Religion, right? And I'm literally going through the book of Mark and showing, like, Jesus' interaction with the religious, and then how he was basically untangling all the stuff that they caked up into what this thing was supposed to be all about. You know, just last week we talked about, you know, the fact that the Pharisees were like, why don't your disciples do the hand washing like we do, right? And on the surface, it sounds ridiculous that Jesus would just go from, hey, why don't you wash your hands, to you guys are hypocrites. Right? It's like, whoa, Jesus, are you so anti-germs? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, why would you be so heated about that? But then realizing that this hand washing was like a ceremony that says, no, we are separating ourselves from the rest of the world. And I think in a sense, that's what religion does sometimes. We're just separating ourselves from the rest of the world. There's no connection there, right? And it's even borderline a little bit of prejudice and racism against everybody else that doesn't look like us, that doesn't talk like us, that doesn't act like us, right? And we wonder why our people don't want to come and entertain this with us, right? So we got work to do to untangle, right? And untangle is not easy, right? You ever try to untangle a cord and how frustrating it is, right? You just want to, like, leave it alone. But I think it's too important for us to just leave it alone, right? We need to stop and ask, what can we do to clear the way? What can we do to make this as simple as possible? Because last time I checked, the gospel is pretty simple, right? For God so loved the world, right, that he gave his one and only. Like, that's the gospel. How do we get everything else out of the way so more people can come to know this Jesus? So here's some practical things that we do, and then we can just talk about it if you guys if you guys want to, right? But this is how we go about it. So for us is to think through the lenses of the unchurched. You know, Paul was great at doing this, right? Paul goes to Athens. What does he do? He finds the connecting point that would connect him to his people, right? So we have to ask those questions, like, what are those connecting points? You know, one of the first things we did when we went to the city was, okay, how can we help? He's talking about bless. I love that because that was our heart was, okay, how can we help? So we do this thing called Serve the City. And we decided, hey, we're not going to do this thing like it's an event because people have had that. But we want to be in the city, help in the city. So now we've gotten to a place now that we, twice a month, we have hands-on things that we do in the city that shows like, hey, we love this place. So we have partnership with shelters. We have partnership with 2 prison ministries. You know, we have partnership with a youth detention home and partnership with the homeless community and partnership with the city that anytime they have a need, they can call us. And so we said, no, we want to come and help our city, right? And because of that, people now, they feel like we're credible. Like, hey, we want to know what you guys are doing because you come and help us exactly where we are. With no strings attached. We don't say you have to come to church. We just go and help. And so now we literally have 20 different projects happens every single month. So 20 times 2, that's 40 projects with hundreds of volunteers now that do this every single time. Why? Because we're like, listen, we have to go where they are. And we just have to tell them, like, we're here because we want to help you. And we tell them, like, we're here for the long haul, right? So we've been around for 5 years. We've had this relationship with most of these places for 4, 3, and recently mostly 2, 1 year, depending on the different things that we've started. So we have to be in the community and show them, like, listen, we are for you. Even if you don't come, we're coming to you. You know, that's a very practical thing that we've decided. And how did each one start? By the passions inside. We're like, what are we passionate about, right? If you're passionate about reaching the homeless, then let's put a team around that. If you're passionate about reaching the youth, let's put a team around that, right? If you're passionate about prison ministry, let's put a team around that. But let's be practical about helping people exactly where they are, right? We do a lot with social media. Why? Because that's the language of the day, right? For us, it's not even about cute posts. It's about, no, we want to be involved. And we want to give you an inside look of what's going on with us, right? So I ask new people all the time, how'd you hear about us? And 9 out of 10 times people say social media. I was at Cumberland Farms grabbing a coffee, and I went to go pay. The lady was like, oh, it's all set. That lady over there paid. And so I went to go say thank you. She said, no, thank you. She said, I've been following you guys on Facebook. And what you guys post encourages me, right? And so I just wanted to say thank you. So I said, have you been to the church? She goes, don't push it. I'm not ready. You know? But I love that there is a social presence, right, in people's lives, right? I just got a letter from an inmate who says, I watch, we have a TV program, it's like I watch it every week, and not just me, but a bunch of us, and it's been helping us, you know, and we just want to say thank you, and would you be willing to somehow keep us accountable from where we are, because we're really grateful for what we see. We just baptized an inmate who said, I have to baptize myself in these clogs because this is how I was introduced to your church. I was in prison in this clog, so this is a reminder of where I've come from, so I want to get baptized that way because you guys have helped me get to this place, you know. So it's about just being practical. I call it practical theology, right? Because sometimes we spend so much time with systematic theology, but we forget incarnational theology, just like being with people and just being available with people. And then our services, you know, to us, I think Andy Stan is the one that said this, but he said the message begins in the parking lot, right? And so we create an atmosphere every week outside to say, like, hey, there's something fun happening here, right? I don't know where we got this idea that fun and holiness don't go together. That's why we have so many sour saints. But I believe, and we say this, church should be enjoyed, not endured, right? We have fun, right? Because what is fun? Well, fun is what opens you up to the rest. I think Spurgeon said it right. He said, humor is what opens up the oyster so you can stick the knife, right? And so it's like you know, you have to use fun and humor and excitement for people to feel like, okay, my guard is down, right? So we have a party in the parking lot. Now that we're in the Shaw's building, there's a Save-A-Lot right next to us, and then there's a Dunkin' on this a laundromat, and they're like, man, you guys, like, I was outside the other day on a Tuesday, and a guy was walking by. He goes, hey, you go to that church? Because I don't tell people I'm the pastor, because then it's like they put you on a category. I was like, yeah, I go to that church. He goes, man, you guys like to party, huh? I was like, yeah, why do you say that? He goes, well, because I work at Save-A-Lot, and it's like a party over here every Sunday. Like, I can't wait to come and see, like. And then he said this is really cool. He said, I see people leaving with smiles on their faces. He's like, I want to know, what is that? Like, how cool is that? He hasn't been, but he's like, I just see this buzz. When we were mobile, we used like, honestly, like 12 different schools in 5 years. But when we were mobile, always a party outside. Speakers outside, people with signs, you know, just. So a woman told me this year. She said this to me, even though she's been coming for a couple of years. She's like, I never told you how I came to church. She said, one Sunday I was driving by Keith Middle School, and I'm seeing this like ruckus outside. I'm like, it's Sunday. What is going on? Like, they're having school on Sunday? Like, and she was like so intrigued. I drove around like 5 times because I was like, what is going on over there? Like, and she said, I have a little infant. So I was so curious that I was like, you know what? We're going in. Like, I want to know, what is the school doing on a Sunday morning? And she said, I came in, she said it was summer of, I think 2018, she said, or 2017, June, and she said, I never left. She said, all because this chaos that I saw outside that just like made me want to come in and see what's going on the inside. You know, that's that saying from that movie, if you build it, they will come. I don't buy it. If you don't invite them, they don't come, right? Jesus said to invite, right, people to come, right? And so for us, it's social media. For us, is outside, and of course, it's teaching our people, like he was just talking about being missional, about being intentional. That listen, one invitation can go a long way, right? We even make, posts where we tell people like copy and paste this and use it, so people can see like, hey, oh, I'm seeing this all over the place. This come sit with me thing. Like, what is that? You know what I mean? So we're always thinking through like, how can we get outside people paying attention, but how can we get our people to get out there and bring that in? Is that making sense? So a welcome atmosphere opens the heart. And then it's about experience over information. I think that's so critical. I think that a lot of times we think that it's the information that is going to get the people. But if you think about your own life, the things that shaped you are the things that hits your heartstrings. Usually it's not just information that makes you think different about something. Usually it's because it has touched you to the core of you that shapes the way you're going to see life, or you're going to do something or not do something. So for us is creating a worship experience where we feel like, listen, we're having fun, but we really want to get to the heart of you. Right? Like I said, I don't want to preach something that you're not going to feel like I can do this tomorrow. Because we all were the students at one point who said, when are we ever going to use this? Right? Like as a teacher, that used to concern me. Like 9 years, I'm like, are we wasting these kids' times here? Because when are they ever going to use this? And I'm like, why should we do that with people who are taking time to come to us on a Sunday morning and not give them something practical that they feel like, oh, I can do this. I just met with a businessman. He says, hey, come to my office. I want to meet with you. I have an idea. And he's been with us for, I think, 3 years now. And he said, listen, he actually was very instrumental in us building. Our building kept us in our budget because he gave us a lot of stuff because he loves the church. But he said, listen, I want to meet with you for a couple of reasons. One, because this church has really shaped me, my marriage, and he's shaping now my adult children who stopped going to church years ago. But he's like, you know what's crazy? He said, the young lady you just met at the door, that's my daughter who runs our office. He said, right before you came in, you know what she was doing? Listening to you on the podcast. He said, you don't have no idea what that means for me as a father, for my adult children to once again want to reconnect with God in church. And he said, see, my son, he works with me. And you know what we were just talking about before you came here? He was telling me, Dad, did you listen to the last podcast? He's like, it's so practical that they want to know. And they're intrigued. So he said, I employ over 200 people. Right? So I'm calling you here because what you've done for me and my family, we want to find a way to give back. So we want to start a job opportunity within the church because we know New Bedford has a lot of needs. And he said, here's another thing you don't know. He's like, next door from me, there's another business. That man goes to your church too. And he said, I want to do that with you. Right? All because they found a place to wrestle with this thing. And it made them feel like, man, this makes sense. That we want to be able to be a blessing also to others on this journey. So simplicity, my friends, is the new deep. You know, practical teaching. And here's another thing for us that's so important. Clear next steps. Like clear. Make it as clear as possible. What do you want people to do next? Right? Again, we can't assume that people know what's next. So for us, that's so critical. Like we call it our game plan. That we have a next step room. It's called literally next steps, you know. And as soon as you walk in, there's this diagram of this is who we are. There's 7 things we want everyone to experience with us. You know, one is to feel welcome. It's like, we just want you to feel welcome. Even if you don't come back, if you ever consider church, you're like, oh, that place was welcome, right? 2, obviously we want you to meet Jesus, right? He's the reason for everything for us. And 3, we want you to commit to Jesus, which is baptism, right? When you get baptized for us, is you went public. Like, man, this is, you're in, right? And then 4, we want you to join the mission, right? We believe that you don't just go to church, you are the church. So we want you to be part of one of our teams. You know, we work in departments, and right now, we just finished last night another, what we call join the mission classes. So now we have 452 people on a team. You know, these are the people that help run our church. And we're getting ready to start a 3rd service in 2 weeks. We're doing a Saturday service on top of the 2 more that we do on Sunday mornings. Why? Because we say to people like, listen, it's not really all there yet until you join a team. Like, you don't even understand how amazing this is when you're like rubbing shoulders with other people. And then 5, we want them to have a support system. That's a small groups. We call them crews. You know, right now we're running 60 small groups with 600 people in them, you know. And so that's our support system. We call it like you need a support system to do life with, you know. And then we want you to serve the city, 6, which is outreach, right? Join one of these serve the cities to go show the world like how great this Jesus is. And then 7 is to reproduce. Hey, if someone did that for you, made you welcome, help you get well, then do the same for them. So we make it clear. These are our next steps. So each week, depending on what's going on, we always highlight, hey, here's the next step coming, right? And now we're shifting, because we're growing so big, we're shifting everything to crews. We're telling our crew leaders, hey, make sure that you're always talking about the next steps. So people in your crews know, like, hey, there's always a next step for you to take on your journey and on your walk with the Lord. And last thing, my friends, I want to share with you, if you guys want to talk about it, we can, is less Christianese. I use this so much, they're like, you pretty much invented this thing, Christianese. I don't know if I did. I don't know. But I just know this. Less is more, right? I wrote a little book, I call it The Basics, because we were like, man, we're getting so many new baby Christians. How do we help them just understand like the basic things, like how to pray, how to read your Bible, what does it mean to tithe? The little, just very simple. But my conviction was, can anyone read this and feel like I understand it? So I have 5 kids. Pray for me. Okay, they're 12, 11, 8, 6, and 5 and 3. Okay, I laugh saying that because I'm like, it's pretty intense to say it out loud. But I finished it. I wanted to be so. I said I gave it to my 12-year-old. She's my oldest. I said, I want you to read this. Tell Daddy if there's something that you don't understand. Because if you don't understand it, then what's the point? So that is our heart, really. Is you believe like however you want to believe, but the 12 is supposed to be like the age of reason, right? You begin to understand things. So I'm like, a 12-year-old needs to understand how to pray, how to read the Bible, right? And what it means to serve and what it means to tithe. So we made it so we give that to a new believer. Every time someone says yes to Jesus, we give them a New Testament and we give them this basic, to go along with it. And we have a new believers class every Tuesday. That's one of our crews. Now we have 5 of them because we've grown so much. Just moving to our own building the last 3 months, we've seen over 150 salvations, in just this 3 months that we've been there. So again, less is more, my friends. I think the more we simplify this thing, I really feel, I think I'm stealing this from Andy Stanley, but he was like, Jesus is irresistible. It's everything else that people resist, right? It's all the other stuff that people feel like, that doesn't make any sense. And most people, you have to remember, I don't know where you guys are from, but from our region, most people just had a bad church experience, right? Most of them grew up Catholic, right? So this week, part of this Untangling Jesus, I really gave them a brief history of church history, where we came from, how the Catholic Church came about. And then guess what? One family was there. They said, we came for the first time because of your TV program we've been watching. We have teenage kids now, and we're like, what's really the point? Why are we going to church? And he said, the very question that we're asking was what you just answered in this message today. And we felt like you were just talking to us, that we're like, what's the point? Kids are teenagers. We're forcing them to go to church. But what is really the point of it all? If it's not to truly love God and love people, So those stories to me is what drives us to keep pushing, to keep believing. You're always going to have the naysayers, just like Jesus did with the Pharisees, right? That say, oh, you guys are just watering down the gospel. I still don't understand what that means, honestly. Like, water, gospel. Like, I just really don't, it doesn't compute for me. To me, it's like, we're just trying to reach people for Jesus. And Paul says, I must become all things to all men, that I may win some. Was Paul watering down his convictions? No, Paul gave his life for this. And I believe we're giving our lives for this. Like, we're not being martyred, but we're giving our lives for people to meet Jesus. Amen? So that's my time. Are we supposed to, I think we're supposed to have Q&A if you guys, is that? Three. That's not what the email said. Okay. The email said stop at 5 minutes and then you have 20 minutes for Q&A. So I don't know. 3 minutes. Anyone? See, now the pressure's like, oh, no, anyone. I could, if you want to email, I can send my email, because I don't have it online. I think, wait, is it on Kindle? I think it might be. Is it? I think it's on Kindle. You can look it up. I'm not sure. But if you give me your email, we'll send it to you. Yeah. My name is Marco. Born and raised in the west coast of Africa, Cape Verde Islands. Anyone familiar with Cape Verde Islands? Yeah, I was born and raised there. I moved here when I was 15. Yeah. We usually only when we have events, we'll do advertisement. Like we just did an event in Fall River, which was really cool. We call it Nights of Hope, where we do like a Friday evangelistic night, and then we did a concert. Like we have a hip hop team that just released their own EP, so that was pretty cool. We had it because we mix all of that together. Like we have hip hop on Sunday mornings, you know what I mean? And it's so cool because some part of our culture that we see that older people just like, do a train wreck with it. But the stuff that people really engage with is like we try to be encouraging, just like the chalkboard thing. But we try to do that through social media. Like how do we encourage someone on the other side of this, even if they don't come to church, And that's the stuff that we hear a lot of feedback from.
150 salvations in 3 months.
Yeah.
How are you presenting the gospel every week and making that just clear and accessible?
So we do that every single, no matter what I'm preaching about, I always end with the salvation call. Like I take 5 minutes at the end to always present the gospel, and we ask for a response. I ask the church to stand, and I'll say a prayer, and then I ask like, if that registered with you, would you lift your hand? I just want to see who I'm talking to, and then I say, in the back of the room we have always 2 people at the end with a sign that says, "Ask me about a free Bible," So we tell them like go. That's how we keep. So what's cool about that is it might be even more than 150. That's the people that went to the room that actually took that next step. You know what I mean? Because not everybody goes. You know. Yeah. Very diverse. You know. Again, New Bedford, if you're familiar with it, it's a melting pot. You know. So there's a big Portuguese population in New Bedford, Latino population, Cape Verdean population. So it's a pretty diverse. And for our biggest demographic is like young professional. You know, we average 200 kids a weekend. You know, just our kids ministry is like its own church. Is that it? Okay. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Appreciate it.